Hello, everyone. I'm Karen Todd Test from Twitter. I'm Karen Todd, a software test engineer from Kansas City in the United States. And today we're speaking with Beth Marshall at Beth Ask Her on Twitter. Hi, Beth.
Hey, lovely to be here.
Glad to have you. Today we're going to explore a little bit about what a software test advocate may look like in practice with some of Beth's experience that she's had in various roles and leading up to this. And I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Awesome. Let's do it.
All right.
Hopefully, we can give some advice to anyone thinking of getting into testing advocacy or wanting to learn more about it. That's my goal of this session.
I hope so. Yeah, the whole point of this is to create a conversation about what this could look like, who's done this well, different techniques that you can use to get into it, and what anyone can do. So currently, you're a senior quality engineer at ADA. What exactly does that mean to you?
Okay, so this is still very, very early days and it's still an evolving kind of space that I'm learning more about every day. I've been there for around 3 weeks. So Ada Health are a really cool company headquartered in Berlin and London. So I am working in a fully remote environment with it's probably unparalleled in my career the caliber of other quality engineers that I currently work with. And that was a huge reason why I joined because there's so many amazing people there that I can learn a lot from.
Mm.
So I am enjoying kind of seeing where the role takes me. Um, it is definitely a true testing role. It is part of a quality team. They're very, very modern in their approach. And yeah, I am learning new stuff every single day. So yeah, it's awesome.
Aren't we all?
Uh-huh.
This is great. So you've had a lot of experience in the community as a whole. I'd like to know a little bit more about your previous role at Mailinator, where you were a QA advocate, because that seems very closely to what we're talking about.
Yes. So it was interesting because I had an opportunity to decide what the job title was going to be.
Mm.
And because Mailinator is a tool that the audience for this tool is predominantly testers, so Mailinator is used to help you automate the testing of your email workflows predominantly, and it's mostly used by testers. So I kind of thought uh, I instead of being a developer relations, really I should be a QA kind of advocate or QA relations, because they're the people that I kind of this product is aimed at. Um, but really the opportunity for that came from um, having previously done a short training video for the guys at Mailinator, just because I kind of liked the product. And they asked me if I would want to do a little training video, and I said yes. And then I had 2 months. I wanted to give myself 2 months from leaving my previous role to starting my next role. Um, because the jobs market is very good, I was in a comfortable place to do that, which I appreciate not everyone is in. But it really gave me this amazing opportunity because I got back in touch with Mailinator to ask, hey, I've got some time to do some more training videos if you wanted me to do them. And they said, well, why don't you just do some more things for us? Why don't you try out this QA rel uh, role and see what we can do. So it was a real open door. And I kind of wish in tech that more people had opportunities to try something out like this, just for a couple of months, just to see if it would fit, to see if you really enjoyed it before committing to things full time. Because it was an amazing like couple of months, but it was exhausting. Like it was a lot more work than I realized it would be. And I
Mm.
really missed testing full time. So
Mm.
it's made me really appreciate what I do now at Ada as a result of those couple of months at Mailinator. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, and not just the actual role that you the actual work that you are doing, but the emotional toll it can take on you as well when you're constantly putting yourself out there and putting forth others and constantly supporting and reaching out. It can be a lot, I'm starting to understand, but it's such an integral part of what software testers do in general, advocating for
Mm.
different tools and different workflows and things like that, that it would be neat if we had someone dedicated to kind of ease the load off of a few other people by taking this on and really running with it. And then I noticed that you had mentioned being a course tutor. What do you do
Mhm.
there? Was that mainly just Mailinator, or was that at other places as well?
No, this was previously. So for about over a year now, in a couple of kind of phases, a couple of stints, I have helped a really cool company called the Coders Guild um, help create some content and deliver content for a software testing boot camp, which has the kind of aim for getting people who don't come from traditional tech backgrounds. Like 50% of the intake was non-male. I think around 50% of the intake was non-white, for example. So it really has a good mission to try and get um, people from non-traditional backgrounds into tech and interested in software testing, wherever that may eventually lead for people. And that was great because it meant that, as a tester for 15 years, I could share some of the practical stories about what
Mm,
testing had been like for me. I think often we have it's so easy to fall into the it depends trap,
mm,
where that's the go-to answer for everything because it's correct. Um, but it doesn't help anybody that wants to learn
mm,
what things are like. So, yeah, being given time with people to really explain the practical side of testing and try and introduce them to elements of testing that it took me years to be exposed to. So, what kind of modern testing looks like, trying to test sort of trying to improve processes in the team, every quality being everyone's responsibility,
mm.
all about different flavors of testing, security, accessibility, all of that good stuff. Like they are armed with that after like 12 weeks on this course. So yeah, that is continuing. They're really ambitious with how they're rolling that out. Um, and I know we will possibly come on to this in a moment, but there are so many opportunities for people to get involved in this stuff. And there's way more opportunities than there are time
Mm.
to actually do all the things that you want to do. So I promised myself I would be a tutor for the Coders Guild for the time that I was officially off work. So I did that alongside the Mailinator thing. And then as I started my new job, I had to be kind to myself and
Mm.
set a bit of a barrier and say, no, for a while, I'll step away from the tutoring. But yeah, it was fantastic. And I believe they are still looking for tutors,
Oh,
experienced software testers, and they do user experience and they do front end development courses as well. So they're looking for people who actually do the job to help train other people. So yeah,
I
if anyone's
love that.
interested.
Yeah, what a neat way to get involved with this conversation and with the wider community. Absolutely.
Mm,
To help bring in others into these roles is so important. To be able to explain kind of what our day looks like and have someone get interested and excited about that is a true
yeah.
talent.
It is
Um,
not hard. It is not hard because it's such a great industry to be in. And I think for people that have come from maybe a service background or
mm,
um, somewhere where they might be, I don't know, dealing with the public a lot, I think tech is the easiest gig in the world. Like it is so much fun. You get to work with like-minded people from all over the world. It's really well paid.
hmm
It's a great area to get into, and it's kind of it's exciting, it's dynamic, and there's so much opportunity. So yeah, trying to kind of persuade others to get involved in that was not a difficult thing whatsoever.
Well, speaking of persuading other people to get involved, these people right here are some of the best as far as people that are within the testing community getting people excited about what's new or showcasing new talent in different ways. Can you speak on any of the test advocates that are currently within testing roles that are really doing this work well?
Yes, I could speak about the people on this list, and lots of the people that aren't on this list, for hours and hours and hours, because they are firstly a huge inspiration, but they are also a huge support network.
Mm,
And I worked in testing for a number of years without being involved in the community at all. I would occasionally go to a meetup on my own and sit at the back and not know what to say to anybody. And I remember the first time I asked a question in a meetup and I was super nervous and it was this big deal. And I was so proud of myself for having asked something. So I know that feeling you know, that feeling that you're outside of something. And I think the testing community is it's unparalleled
mm,
from the other communities that I've seen, because it is supportive, genuinely. Like, people want to see other people succeed. And I've personally had an enormous amount of confidence from um, only really since lockdown, since the pandemic started, when the schools closed and I had more time on my hands, etc. That's when I started to get more into all of this stuff, and it's had a huge effect on me personally, but also on the opportunities that I've been allowed to take advantage of, um, and my career in general. Like, if you think doing this stuff doesn't have an impact on your career, really think again, because it is something that a lot of the more kind of forward thinking companies genuinely look for now in their
mm,
candidates. And it is a brilliant, brilliant way to stand out. It gets you through the first stage of the interview without needing to do any work, because you've already done the work, because people feel like they know you. I mean, you
mhm.
must find that yourself when you're particularly on Twitter, which I know you're on Twitter a lot, and LinkedIn too. Like, how have you felt that it's sort of been an influence on you?
Um, I find that when I am sharing my learning, that it helps to cement what's in my head, to say it out loud, to help put the words out there that you actually do understand what it is that you've been taking in, that you're able to repackage it in a way that someone else's perceived level of understanding can take in, and then they can do the same and pass it on to others. And everyone gets built up a little more in that way. And so that's kind of the way that I think about sharing and supporting, is by giving people a chance to take in this information and respin it on their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So absolutely. So I'm curious, how how did you come to be where you are? What decisions did you make that brought you to this place where you are, where you have this freedom to kind of explore now?
Mm-hmm. So the title of this section is, was this natural or a conscious decision? And I
Hmm.
guess a little bit of both would be my honest answer. Um, so I am obviously, as I mentioned, I wasn't someone that was actively involved in the community a lot at all. Um, but I did make a conscious decision to do that more actively. Um, but I certainly think that there are probably traits that I have by nature, um, that I can kind of relate to some of the things that you're saying about wanting to share what you have with other people, and about everyone, progressing, like the water rising for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and that being sort of, a guiding thing. So I'm anti-competitive by nature, and I'm always someone that is, I want to share what I know with everybody else. I don't I've never really understood people that, um, kind of become gatekeepers or kind of shut themselves off and say they don't want to tell you anything. And testing is full of people of a really similar mindset, which is a really nice set of people to be around, actually.
Mm.
Um, so I found it's more leans into, the advocacy stuff leans into things that, um, I enjoy. So kind of getting to meet new people doesn't scare me. It scares me a lot less than it used to. Um, and practicing sort of empathy and maybe sort of active listening. I know, when Simon was, on your interview, recently, those were things that were really important to him, and
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree. Um, but I also think you have to sometimes carve. Uh, if you're going to be involved in testing advocacy type things, you have to manage your own workload in that regard,
Mm.
because a lot of the opportunities you're asked to get involved with are quite ad hoc. It's unusual, although not impossible, to find a fixed job like the one I had at Mailinator, that is your role.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but even within that, my role was very fluid, right? I would be, um, liaising with third parties about integrations, or I would be creating a training video, or I would be, trying to understand the product, or I would be meeting with the CEO. It was very, very up to me to experiment and try new things,
Mm-hmm.
which was awesome. But I think you have to be quite regulated with yourself sometimes, and prepared to say, okay, I have a page full of opportunities and I can't say yes to all of them,
Mm.
because this is going to completely burn me out, and no one is going to tell me not to do it. So I think you have to consciously decide, um, what your kind of internal red lines are,
Mm.
and people will respect that. I kind of thought in the beginning that you have to say yes to everything, and you really don't. Like, you really
Mm-hmm.
don't. So yeah, that's definitely a lesson
Well, that's sort
that
of
I learned
the
the hard way.
oh, that's sort of the nature of the beast, isn't it? That's the reason why we're having this conversation is because there isn't a set role many times for people who do this
Mm-hmm.
kind of work. They kind of create it themselves based
Right.
on the nature of the work that they do and how that affects other people. So that's very interesting. I like that you mentioned that it was very fluid because that's very true for all of this. Everything's always changing. There's new technologies, there's new ways in which to connect with people. So it is very fluid. So what would you, knowing all that you know now, and not being able to necessarily change the big decisions that you made that led you here, but what advice would you have given yourself at the beginning of this journey that may have made it a little easier on you?
Oh, lots of things. I wish I well, I think I now know what types of involvement I find less time consuming and less stressful.
Mm.
For example, but I had to try those things out to learn, because it wasn't necessarily what I thought it would be at the first place. So I kind of think, in terms of some of the challenges that I found with being this sort of QA rel, it's a bit like raising a child. So the things that you think are going to be super easy are often the things that are the hardest. So
Mm.
my little boy, when he was growing up, I love food. I mean, clearly.
Oh.
So I thought getting him to eat food, that is going to be the easiest thing. This is going to be super straightforward. No, that was the trickiest thing. And he just wanted milk forever. And it's kind of the same. I found the same with advocacy. So I kind of thought, oh, blog posts. I write blog posts all the time. How hard can they be? But when you're tilting that to be making sure that you're delivering the right message for someone else's company, it's so much harder, and you have
Mm.
to really think about what you're doing that much more, and you have to um, get feedback on what you've done, and it has to make sense, and that was much more of an unexpected challenge even recently. So I do not have all the answers to these questions, but I certainly have refined over time the things that I'm more likely to say no to now,
Mm-hmm.
and the things that I'm more likely to kind of jump at and really, really want to move mountains to be involved in. And I think if you can learn that, the earlier you learn that, the easier your life will be, because there are opportunities in all different avenues, right? If you want to focus on just writing a series of blog posts and getting people from all over the world to read what you've done, and kind of using that as a springboard for other things, that is great. If you just want to go to panels and become a panel member and turn up on the spot and share your experience that way without any prep, maybe that's something that you like to do. Or maybe you are super prepared by nature and you want to know exactly what you're getting into, and the thought of a Q&A after a talk absolutely scares the bejesus out of you, and so then you can try and shape that narrative a little bit. So yeah, I definitely feel the knowing yourself a little bit enough to know when to say yes and when to say no.
Mm.
Um, the sooner I could have learnt that, the happier I would have been,
Absolutely.
for sure. Um, Other things, um, what do I wish I'd have known? To ask for help, like
Oh.
the right, the community are unbelievably willing to help you. I learned this when I was doing a course on Test Automation University, and
Mm.
I reached out to the instructor and I thought, there is no way this person's going to respond to me. And they did, and they got back and they got me over the hump that I was experiencing. And I was like, oh, you just have to ask. What the
Mm-hmm.
worst they can say is nothing, and then you've lost nothing. So that is definitely a big thing for me. Being People don't know you're struggling unless you say
Mm-hmm.
what you need help with, and then people
Absolutely.
will really help. And there are so many people that want to
Yeah, that
get rise people up, like we were saying. Yeah.
absolutely. That rings a bell with something that Simon was talking about when I just did the video with him recently. He mentioned something specific that someone can do to get involved, and I'll reiterate it here because he said, go do the training courses, go look at those blog posts, go look at those club posts, and then say thank you.
Mm,
And that person may see it on this course that they created 2, 3 years ago and go, oh, it's making a difference. It may not have been instantaneous. It may be a couple years down the road, but it's nice to know when you put the content out there that it's still bringing value to people. So
mm,
just a quick thank you is always appreciated. So I really like that.
totally. Yeah.
But on something else that you were talking about, if we skip over to the skills that you feel helped shape your experience, that knowing your own boundaries, you keep coming back to that. I feel like that's such a big topic, not only in your personal life, but also in your career, because it's important to know when to say no, when you're overloaded, when you're functioning within your means, because we only have so much to pour out before we need to
Hmm.
reload and come back to ourselves later. So, I am really interested to know these skills that you learned here along the way. How did Orbit and Yoast kind of bring you into a place where you could share your learnings a little better?
Yes. So in terms of practical um, advice or tools that I would point people wanting to sort of level up their testing advocacy stuff, the things that have helped me. Um, Simon Tomes pointed out we had a session when I just started being QA Rel at Mailinator. I actually just reached out to him to say, I don't really know what I'm doing. And he said, how can I help? So we had a little short session together, which was great. And he pointed me to Orbit to say, this is what they use at Ministry of Testing to kind of try and really have more of a organized approach to your social media, whatever it is, brand awareness, engagement, community, um, advocacy, etc. I didn't need to use it in Mailinator because they were a much smaller company, but I think I would definitely advise people that want to get communities going to take a look at that. Something that I used at Mailinator to review the blog posts, which is so good, I kind of want to buy it myself, is a WordPress plugin called Yoast. And it gives you a score. It's really easy. So it just gives you a traffic light, red, amber, green for your readability and the SEO score of your blog
Mm,
posts, which I knew nothing about. I just write what I write on my private blog and it goes into the ether and that's that.
same.
But there is a bit of an art form to this that I was completely like, whoa, okay. And it also points out things that I suspected, but it was really good that I had an objective tool to tell me which sentences were too long and that my paragraphs were too wordy and I needed to add alt text into my images and just
Mm,
nice reminders that um, to just make things great. And I can be a little anally retentive. I don't know if that's the right word, but I like the gamification of trying to make something all green. So
ah,
all of the blog posts that I did for Mailinator, I made sure they were all green before they were published, um, which was just a little thing for me. And hopefully it made the blogs easier for other people to both access and actually digest, which is why why you want to do them in the first place, right?
mhm.
So um, another thing that I did on Simon's advice is followed a template that he's got. If you check out his blog, there's a blog post called A Useful Template for Exploring Event Ideas. And
Huh.
this was something that I tried at Mailinator because they said their question was, do testers like swag? And I was like, well, is that a rhetorical question? Of course they do. And then I thought, I don't know, like maybe it's just the testers in my little sphere that I think are into this stuff. And
Hmm.
what would be the best thing that they would like at a conference, or what would really make them have something good.
Mhm.
So I did a little experiment based on Simon's template, and it gave me some empirical data to kind of work from and feedback to the team. Um, and yeah, they're definitely going down the swag route big time. So
Love
like,
that.
watch this space for mailing into swag for sure. So yeah, I definitely think some of those tools are really useful, and relying on your existing relationships as well, like that you've built up with other people in the community to kind of reach out and ask for advice.
Mhm.
That is all really useful as well.
Absolutely. So while all of these things are very useful and good to have for people who maybe just be getting who are maybe just getting started into this realm, just starting to ask questions. Maybe they're not even a software tester yet. Um, these It can be intimidating when you think you don't have anything to offer yet. So, what would you say to people about their transferable skills? What is valuable in this area? What is valuable in this space?
Okay. So firstly, I was absolutely one of those people. Um, I set myself a New Year's resolution a few years ago to try public speaking and to push myself to public speaking.
Huh.
And it took me until November of that year to think of something to say. So
Mm,
I set the goal at the start of the year, and it bothered me all year that I was thinking, what do I have to say that other people want to hear? So I can completely understand and empathize with anyone who feels like they're Asian. In terms of, so what was the question? Things in the advocacy space that can
that can
help
come
with
from
that.
anywhere, that anyone can contribute with, no matter their level of expertise in a particular area, some things that they can do immediately. How can they get involved?
So you don't need to start really big. You
Hmm.
can start super small. Um, as Simon was saying, you can just uh, write a thank you to someone's social media post
Hmm.
or reply to something that they've said with your genuine response. And that there really isn't a right or a wrong answer.
Hmm.
Um, it's just great to see people getting involved. And sometimes you don't even need to get involved. You can just lurk, you can just
Mm.
observe and see if this is something you want to try out more of. I certainly would say, I haven't myself come from a super technical background, and not having that CS degree has been a big sort of worry for me.
Mm.
Throughout my career, it's something that's bothered me, but it bothers me a lot less now than it used to, because I can see how important all the other stuff is. Um, and actually being able to share your thoughts, just exactly what you were saying before, share your thoughts in a way that makes them digestible to lots of different types of people is such a great skill. And you can have that. It doesn't matter what you've done before. If you're someone that has that skill, if people have said you're a good storyteller, um, or you are helpful, or people used to say to me, you would make a great teacher.
Mm.
Those kind of uh, core skills, they've meant that I've never struggled to find a job in 15 years. I've not been out of work despite feeling like, this huge imposter syndrome cloud hangs over you.
Hmm.
Um, they are really important, and more so now than ever, because you deal with and work with people from all over the world all the time.
Mm.
And that level of ability to not only communicate with people, but to actually form meaningful relationships with them that are valuable to all parties concerned.
Yeah.
Um, that's great. Like, that is golden. And
Mm.
sometimes you don't realize that you can do that stuff until you're in that situation.
Hmm.
Uh, and you don't realize what you can do. Oh, how do I phrase this? Um, I remember being in an interview years ago, years ago, long before I was a tester. And I was worrying about this interview because I had a little presentation on it, and I was super nervous, and it was just my boss and me. And after I got the job, she said to me, Beth, I can have a conversation with you. That makes you above 60% of the people that can walk through this door. And I thought, wow, okay. And I think that's right. If you have those skills to actually connect with people, um, and a passion for doing that, you are in a really good place to take advantage of like the ridiculous number of opportunities that there are to get involved in advocacy and to really move your craft forward and be part of that. I know something that's important to you, Karen, is wanting software testing to be something that is understood outside of software testing. And I can totally empathize with that, right? Do you think maybe in like 5 years' time, would you like to say what you do for a living and people just get it off the bat? Wouldn't that be great?
Oh, yes. I have to have an elevator speech or an elevator pitch prepared every time anyone asks me what I do for a living.
And it's such a shame because that's exclusionary. I
Mhm.
think the net effect of that is that I feel like I'm part of this amazing club that I wish everybody knew about because it's such a great job.
Mhm.
um, and it's hard both ways because we have to kind of explain what we do endlessly,
Mhm.
but equally I want people that don't know what this is to know what this is. I wish they did more. And that's the
Yes.
direction that I hope we will go in.
Yes, absolutely. So it boils down to if you don't know how to get involved, just watch for a little bit. That is getting
Right.
involved. If you're listening, if you're learning, you're already involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's so many different paths that people can take in order to get involved in this community, and I highly encourage everyone who's interested to reach out to us. Here in just a moment, I will share our Twitter handles again, but just to wrap up, I really appreciate you being here and being a part of this conversation that really is going to shape how people view advocacy, how we can how we can share our stories, how people can share their learning, how people can share their work in many different ways. So, do you have any parting thoughts for the viewers?
Hmm. Parting thoughts. Um, oh, what would my parting thoughts be? Get better at thinking on the spot, Beth.
I know this is a hard one. I threw this
Don't.
one at you without any prep.
That's okay. So I guess it would be um, take a look around and see what appeals to you about the various different things we've got in the testing community. Is it you can be an advocate by being a mentor, right, to just one person. You don't have to do things on a global scale. You don't have to do enormous events. Of course, if that's what you're leaning towards, um, there are a bunch of ways to do that, more so now than ever, because there's so many things online
Mm,
and so many people that want to learn and share from each other. But don't let perfection get in the way of good and of trying things and achieving things right, because I let that hold me back so often, thinking, as I say, I've got nothing to say. I'm not technical enough. I'll be, you have these worries, and actually, the real world just wants you to do well, and it is
mm,
not that big a deal. And another thing, my final thing would be, if you're obsessing over the detail of what you're doing and feeling like it has to be perfect, what matters in the long run is that you did it.
mm,
When you look back, it doesn't matter if you screwed up that sentence or got that concept wrong or weren't able to answer that question in the Q&A. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you've done that thing, you've done that talk, you've tried that thing, you've experienced something different, and you've helped people. So if you are someone that is nervous about taking that kind of first dip, take someone with you if you wish. They do things collaboratively,
mhm.
which also makes things easier. And yeah, don't think you need to be perfect, because that the only one that has that expectation is yourself.
Mm,
And you're doing yourself a disservice by waiting for things to be perfect before doing things. I
that's
need to
my
take my own advice.
That's my favorite piece of advice is perfection is the enemy of good. That is my favorite piece of
Right.
advice. I'm so glad we're on the same page. Alrighty, Beth, this has been an absolutely lovely conversation. I really appreciate you being here with us today. Here are our Twitter handles again. If you'd like to join the conversation, if you'd like to connect with us, tell us what you think at Karen Todd Tess and at Beth Ask Her. Thank you again, Beth. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Karen. Take care.